Thank you very much for tuning into this episode of Deceptions and Other Truths. It actually means a lot that you're joining me. First off, tiny bit of housekeeping. I'm not going to be doing these every week. I know I put one up last week and I'm putting one up this week, but this is more something I'm going to be aiming to do fortnightly, and I'm going to try and get a guest at least once a month, but I'm not always going to be able to guarantee that. So, just that's what we're working towards going forward. I hate that joke. No, today I wanted to talk about causes and why we do certain things and why I do certain things, because it's something I want to talk to future people about and future guests about. I also want to talk, it is something I believe should be part of what we do. And so when I say causes, I mean things that you stand for, things that you want to improve, and things that you believe in. So I have two, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know this already. I have two major causes that I personally get behind. I have three that I try and incorporate into my entire life, but two of them are something that I really want to focus on with how I conduct myself. And the first one I can't actually talk about much, and I'll explain why. The first one is culture. Now, in Australia, like a lot of colonised parts of the world, or formerly colonised parts of the world, we have a very horrific history with our Indigenous communities. In Australia, not only was it actively, let me start this sentence again. In Australia, not only did the colonists actively try and wipe out the Indigenous community through violence, they also tried to breed them out through a thing called the Stolen Generation. And it is a very bad part of Australian history, and it still has ramifications today. And it is something that as a white Australian, I'm not proud to be associated with that history, because it's not something that I stand for. So as I travel, as I do things, I really try and find the Indigenous side and learn an Indigenous story and learn more about the Indigenous culture, because I believe that Australians' future is bicultural, Indigenous, and all of the cultures that get brought in to Australia. It should be a truly multicultural society, and some parts of it are really not at the moment. The reason I can't talk about it is because, or I shouldn't talk about it, more importantly, is because it is not my place. It is my place to observe and respect and to stand up for the right things, but it's not my place to put opinions on it, because for so long it has been people who don't understand fully the culture and what happens in that culture that have been making decisions for that culture. It now comes to, it's now about passing the mic, as it were, to those who need the voice. And so I genuinely don't believe that it is my place to talk about things that I have never had to experience through my own good fortune and through the colour of my skin, which I have no control over, which makes this, it's why racism is so fucking ridiculous. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. What I am going to do for the rest of my life, whenever I travel within Australia, whenever I do things within Australia, is to try and learn more about the culture that I'm in, more importantly, respect the culture that I'm in, and to make the effort to help keep that culture alive. It is the oldest living culture on the planet, and it is very close to extinction, which actually makes me quite sad. Anyway, that's one cause that I have, but that's the personal list to me. The other cause, and this is the one I'm going to be more vocal about, because it is something I genuinely also believe in, is mental health. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. Mental health's not a cause, it's a thing. Mental health is a cause. Mental health is incredibly important, just like physical health is. And like physical health, mental health requires things to keep you healthy. You need to exercise your brain. You need to make sure you eat well. You need to make sure that you do things that don't actively destroy your brain and your consciousness and all of that stuff. But mental health carries with it a stigma. If you talk about it, there's a problem. You have a problem if you talk about it. And as a man, it's even worse. If you talk about it, you're weak. Now, thankfully, there are lots of organisations out there like Beyond Blue, the Shaka Project, or Shaka Project, depending on how you pronounce your 8, Living within Australia. All of these guys are doing some incredible work to try and break the stigma about mental health and talking about mental health. Sadly, though, mental health still does a lot of damage to a lot of people, and I find that really difficult. I personally have had lots of issues with mental health. Whether it's a genetic predisposition or early events in my life, I have a natural tendency towards depression. I have depressive tendencies. I also have anxiety. I don't get full-blown anxiety. I do want to try and drive, but I'm working through that. But I do get anxious in situations that shouldn't really call for an anxious response. And I have dealt with depression. I've dealt with some quite serious depression through my life. I'm not saying this so that people feel sorry for me. I'm saying it so that people understand that I know my story and I have my own experiences with this stuff. As well as my family, they've all had experiences with this stuff. Every single person in my immediate nuclear family has had something to deal with from a mental health point of view. Whether it's a nervous breakdown, whether it's the ramifications of eating disorders, every single person in my family, my nuclear family, so my mum and my dad and my siblings, have had to deal with some pretty hardcore shit in their life, and they have come through it. And they have learned from it, and I'm incredibly proud of them for what they've done. And I have very close friends who still struggle with mental health problems. And one of them, in particular, has some incredibly dark demons that I can't even imagine, and I've got a pretty dark imagination. And so the fact that that person is able to continue to be a good human and continue to try and bring out the best in other people is incredibly impressive, and I'm very, very proud of that person. And I'm proud to be their friend. But I know these people's stories, I know what they carry with them because they are close to me and I am close to them. But random people on the street, you don't know their story. You don't know what they're dealing with. And they say that those who laugh the loudest and those who are the happiest aren't always. That's sometimes very, very true. Look at someone like Robin Williams, one of the funniest men I have ever had the privilege of watching, and yet he committed suicide. And I should change that sentence. He ended his life. Because saying committed suicide, it condemns the person for what they've done. All of this stuff, mental health is a really, really dark place for some people, and it's an incredibly hard place for some people, and they feel isolated. They feel like they can't communicate it. And so this is why mental health is a cause for me, is because I want to reassure for a lot of people that mental health is something you can talk about. That the darkness you carry within you is not something to be afraid of and not something to hide from other people. I'm lucky. I know that my darkness, my whatever you want to call it, demons, whatever, help me. They help me create. They help me see beauty in incredibly twisted things, to the point where I'll say something beautiful and people go, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I don't care. I find it beautiful and makes my world better. But I talk about this stuff. I talk about mental health. I try and champion other people to learn about their own mental health and looking after their own brains and asking for help if they need it, and talking. Just talking. Even if you don't know the answer, just talking it out sometimes helps. Again, I realise I'm rambling, but this shit's important. So, what does this mean for the future of this podcast? I know those of you who are still watching and listening, thank you. You've been through a lot of 10 minutes of me talking about utter shit. Well, not utter shit, but 10 minutes of me talking and 10 minutes of quite uninteresting visuals. So if you're still here, thank you. What does this mean for the future of the podcast? Well, there will be some guests on here who have had mental health demons in the past, and if they're comfortable talking about it, I would want to talk to them about it, because I believe it has made them incredible people. Overcoming that demon, learning more about themselves and how they operate, usually does make the person stronger, and there's something ineffable about how you see the world, and I'm fascinated by that, so I want to talk to people about that. It is also something I am going to potentially struggle with again. I may have times when my mental health gets the best of me and I need help talking about it, so I may get on here and talk about my demons, and I'm forewarning you for that. But it is something that is very close to my heart, something that I believe I can make a difference on, and so it is something I'm going to champion for the rest of my life and the rest of my career. So yes, I wanted to put that down on camera and communicate that with everyone, so that it doesn't come as a surprise in the future, and so that when I do start talking about it, people A, understand that it's important to me, B, aren't shocked by it, and C, don't think that I'm getting on my high horse when I talk about it, because I genuinely believe in it and I genuinely want to make a difference. So thank you very much for tuning in for this one. I genuinely appreciate it, because it can be very difficult stuff for people to talk about, and even if they keep their shit together, doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't strike somewhere deep. So I really appreciate it. I'll keep you posted with what happens in the future. Until then, look after yourselves. I'll see you soon.